We're going to go into all of those, and then at the end we'll have some time for some questions and answers. And as Jen said, feel free to use the chat window, and I'll address as many of those as I can as we go along. So first off, what are the services? Basically, this is a unique offering that we come up with. We call it EV or EDP 247, depending on which components you'd like to use. We start with Microsoft Azure. We work with Veritas Technologies, and then of course we have BlueSource Managed Services. And this covers archiving with Enterprise Vault, the Discovery Platform from Veritas, formerly known as Clearwell, the Discovery Accelerator product for doing eDiscovery, Compliance Accelerator for supervisory review, and then there are a number of connectors that are available as well to extend the capability of those platforms. For this service, we won Partner of the Year award with Microsoft in 2015, and also all of these services are available as a FedRAMP authorized SaaS level cloud solution as well, which I'll go in a little bit more detail later. So let's start with Microsoft Azure. What we're doing is we're offering this as infrastructure as a service. So those are the features of Microsoft Azure that we're using. Every customer gets a unique subscription. So this is not a multi-tenanted solution. It's not a shared solution. You have dedicated resources just for you. The great thing about Azure is that capital expenses become operational. So you have a nice operational expense model as opposed to laying out large capital expenditures for things like hardware and resources to set that up and all of those associated costs. It also becomes a predictable spend. So we do cost analysis, and of course everything in Azure is based on a utility model. So you have a predictable spend based on usage. If you divest or acquire new organizations, you can easily scale up or down. The way that Azure works, it makes it very flexible for us to easily scale up or down resources as needed in order to extend your environment. It's the same data centers as Office 365, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it's in the same ecosystem as Office 365, which we work with quite heavily. And as I mentioned before, this is also available as a FedRAMP authorized Modern Impact Cloud service, which means that it's gone through several iterations of security testing and validation by the FedRAMP program. Some of the features that are available, we'll start off with Enterprise Vault. So it's the same Enterprise Vault that you may be currently using. It's journaling, either using the new SMTP archiving or the traditional MAPI journaling as well. You get all of that functionality in Microsoft Azure with Enterprise Vault. There's SharePoint archiving as well for any SharePoint servers you may have on-prem. So you can archive off those older documents up into the cloud. Same thing for file system archiving. So if you have file shares either on-prem or in Azure, then you can perform archival to Enterprise Vault. You can either have Enterprise Vault on-prem and sending that information up to Azure for storage, or you can have all of the file shares and Enterprise Vault servers in Azure as well. I mentioned before there are connectors that are available for Enterprise Vault that extend its capability. So social media archiving and collaboration platforms, instant message platforms, all of those things are available in Azure as well. And then of course with Enterprise Vault 12 you have advanced classification and retention. So all of the information that goes into Enterprise Vault can be run through the classification engine and receive advanced retention and also exclusion from being archived or escalation for review. The eDiscovery platform, also known as Clearwell, is available in Azure as well from BlueSource. So it covers the entire EDRM workflow from legal hold notification through identification and collection, through processing, analysis, and review, and finally production. So you can have that entire workflow in the Azure cloud and not have any on-prem footprint. We can deploy it as a single server, a classic cluster, or in a distributed architecture as well. So we've done this for a number of customers. We have Clearwell easily able to be scaled up in a distributed architecture, and in many cases, we can have additional servers provisioned within an hour, which is an amazing accomplishment. When you have servers on-prem and you need to add an additional eDiscovery server, that can be quite the process. Also available with this is Discovery Assist, which is a service that I'll go into a little bit later. And then, of course, you have Discovery Accelerator and Compliance Accelerator. So these tools are available in Azure as well to perform collection and review, basic review within Enterprise Vault, as well as supervisory review. So this is great tools that are in Azure. Again, you don't have to have any footprint on-prem to use these. And of course, they are the same DA and CA that you may be using currently. So as far as access goes, the Enterprise Vault application, you may be wondering, how is this accessed in the cloud? And essentially, the three main components that you'll be accessing are the search, which you'll continue to use through Outlook or OWA if you're doing mailbox archiving, or you just need to have access to any of the archives within EV. It'll continue to work exactly the same way within Outlook. And there's also the web page component as well. And this can be made available over the public internet, or it can be restricted to VPN. Shortcuts through Outlook or Outlook Web Access, you can have that exposed over the internet or restricted through VPN as well, but those will continue to work just as they do today. And then any custom reports, you can access those through the web as well, either restricted to VPN or over the public internet. For the Discovery Accelerator and Compliance Accelerator, there are desktop clients, and you'll be able to install those on your workstation or keep them installed if you have those already, and those are accessible through VPN. We can also make that accessible over RDP if that's an easier way to do that. And the export folders for both of those applications can be available over RDP or Secure FTP. For the Discovery application, the application itself, of course, is web-based, so natively you'll be able to access that through a web browser, either over the public internet using a top-tier certificate, or, of course, through a VPN. The evidence repo, or the area where you will be collecting data to, you can access that through remote desktop or secure file transfer. And the same with the exports from the eDiscovery platform. If they're under 2 gigs, you can download it straight through the application. If they are over that, you can certainly access it through Secure FTP. So that is how the access works for those applications in Azure. Let's talk about who this is for. Number of use cases for how this service really provides a lot of value. First off, are you moving to Office 365? There's a lot of organizations that are currently in that headed in that direction, or they might already be there. Office 365 offers a lot of compelling features, and we work with Office 365 very closely. So if you're moving there, as I mentioned before, the Azure data centers are in the same data center ecosystem as Office 365. So if you are currently in Office 365 and you have your email being journaled back on-prem to Exchange and then into Enterprise Vault that way, we can actually move you directly into Azure and have that email go straight from Office 365 into Enterprise Vault and continue utilizing that journal stream, and you're able to decommission your Exchange servers on-prem. That allows you to continue using the journal and have all of the compliance features that come along with that. If you're currently an Enterprise Vault or eDiscovery platform customer, and the hardware that those systems are running on, or the storage hardware that supports them, if they're due for a refresh, it might be a good time to think about moving to Azure. Instead of laying out capital expenditure to refresh that hardware, we can move that into Azure for you and get those workloads up there and move over to a more operational cost model. Are you looking to reduce your data center footprint? For eDiscovery platform especially, the requirements can be hefty. And of course, Enterprise Vault as well, and the storage platforms if you're looking to collapse those down and reduce your data center footprint, these are perfect workloads to move into Azure and get them out of your data center. Are you on an older version of Enterprise Vault? So if you're on EV9, which is currently out of support, and EV10, which will be out of support soon, it might be a good time to move that into Azure and get on the latest version of Enterprise Vault. And this is a perfect time to do that. As we'll discuss later, there are great options to cover all of these situations for moving to Microsoft Azure. Are you looking to expire a large amount of data? A lot of organizations that have Enterprise Vault currently have a lot of data in there, and they may need to expire quite a bit of it. And as you'll see when we talk about migration options, we're actually able to leave quite a bit of that data behind. So it may be a really good time if you're interested in deleting a lot of data or letting it expire to move into Azure and just leave that data behind. So let's talk about how we actually get into the Azure managed service. There are two paths. One is a forklift, and the forklift is the fastest and least expensive option that's available. Basically, in this situation, your entire Enterprise Vault or eDiscovery environment is forklifted into Azure. And this is, when we say forklift, it's different from doing a traditional API or data migration. Essentially, your environment is backed up and restored into Microsoft Azure. And so this is great if you are on newer installations of Enterprise Vault, such as version 11 or version 12. If you're on version 11, we can forklift the environment into version 12 and upgrade you there. If you're currently on 12, then of course we can just forklift the environment into Azure and just install the latest hotfixes that are required. This depends on your current storage device. So folks that are using object-based storage, like the Centera, will not be able to take advantage of this option. And it also depends on your desired target storage in Azure. There's a couple of different storage options within Azure that you can take advantage of. One is a little bit more expensive than the other. And so depending on which one is suited best, you may not be able to use the data forklift option. So that's why we have the migration option. And this is great for folks that are on older installations of EV, such as EV9 or EV10. Going to version 12 can have several, points of migration and upgrade. So there's in-place upgrades, there's server migrations to newer hardware with newer versions of Windows and newer versions of SQL. So there's a lot of moving parts to that, and we can go directly from EV9 or EV10 or 11 for that matter to 12 without having to go into any of the versions in between. So if you're on version 9 right now, it makes sense for you to go directly to 12. So I have a question in the chat about version 8. So version 8 is definitely unsupported. We can do the migration options for version 8. However, as you're probably aware, Veritas will not support version 8. So if there are any issues with corruption or access to data, they will not be able to assist with that. The second option for the migration that makes a lot of sense is leaving older data to expire. So with the migration options, we can filter the data based on date. And so if you have 10 years of data in your Enterprise Vault environment and you'd only like to move the last 7 years of it, we can certainly do that. And that is by far the most efficient way of letting that data expire, and that way we can reduce the cost and time to migration by only migrating the data that you'd like to keep. As I mentioned, we have a direct upgrade path to 12. So the way that this migration works is that it essentially takes all of your information and archives it fresh within the new environment in Microsoft Azure. And because of that, if you have an Enterprise Vault 9 or before installation that's using 32-bit archives, we can automatically convert all of those to 64-bit because they are fresh archives and fresh indexes. And as I mentioned before, there's no interim upgrades or any other moving parts like that. This method is also agnostic as far as the source storage, so you could be using Centera or Atmos or NetApp or direct attached storage, block level storage, anything like that, doesn't matter. And then we also have the ability to use the cheaper blob storage within Microsoft Azure. So BlueSource has the capability to use Enterprise Vault with the Azure blob storage directly, and it is a significantly cheaper option than some of the more expensive storage options within Microsoft Azure. So that is the migration path. As far as the management, how is this all managed? So the managed service is a real-time monitoring and remediation service. So it's 24/7. We monitor for any issues that occur with Enterprise Vault or the Discovery Platform or DA or CA. And we also guarantee and monitor performance based on the best practices and performance guides that are put out by Veritas for the products. You get one major version upgrade per year for each product supported, and you get unlimited patches and hotfixes. So EV12 is the latest version. They will probably skip version 13 and go to 14. And so when that happens, you get a major version upgrade included with the service. And then, of course, whenever a hotfix or a patch comes out, you get unlimited installations of those. The important thing also is that we don't roll these out without working with your change control process. So a lot of SaaS offerings will just roll out updates, and they have no, they don't work with your change control schedule. They don't send you a notice of when this is going to happen. They just kind of roll out and do it. We don't do that. We work with your change control board, so any hotfixes or patches that are going to be deployed, you're going to be well aware of it. You're going to be aware of what issues they resolve, and as far as new features and everything that goes along with those. If that's not something that you're interested in or you don't think it solves a business need, you don't have to do those. So we work very closely with change control boards to make sure that the updates and patches that are being rolled out are approved. We also manage all of the infrastructure. So as far as storage and databases and operating systems, they're all managed completely for you. The storage is provisioned automatically, so if you need more storage provisioned, it happens automatically. Databases are automatically tuned and managed for you, so your database administrators won't have to perform any maintenance or monitor those databases at all. And then finally, we manage and patch the operating systems that run the servers. So again, all infrastructure is completely managed. There's a monthly reporting component to the service as well. So we provide environment statistics, we provide information on archiving behavior, and a summary of all the recent events that have occurred in your environment. And you also receive access to a service delivery manager. And this person's job is to make sure that you are getting the most out of the managed service. So they provide governance, they're a customer advocate for you, and they also are the person that you can escalate any critical situations to. And finally, they will be delivering the monthly status reports as well as semi-annual reviews to you. There are some SLAs, of course, with the managed service. We guarantee 99.9% availability of the applications. That covers both Enterprise Vault as well as the eDiscovery platform. And for Enterprise Vault, we guarantee performance as well, as specified within the performance guide that Veritas publishes. And there are SLAs for response times for incidents. So for example, a P1 incident has a 15-minute SLA response guaranteed from BlueSource. And then of course you get monthly and semi-annual reviews for the management. So as far as service enablement, this is the process that we go through in order to enable an organization for the managed service. So this covers all areas. There's a kickoff phase where we For existing customers, we take a look and we also assess the current environment, perform health checks to make sure that there are no issues that would prevent us from moving the environment into Azure. And then there's a transform phase, which covers any upgrades or changes to the environments that are needed in order for us to move it into Azure. And then, of course, there is the operational phase. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, in addition to the managed services, is a Discovery Assist service. And this applies to the eDiscovery platform. And what this service is it's a pair of hands that can augment your staff or provide assistance on performing any part of the EDRM workflow or the eDiscovery reference model workflow. So if you need assistance with creating legal hold notifications, creating collections, or constructing searches, we can provide assistance doing that with any part of the EDRM. So a lot of those searches that come in can get very complex, and constructing those searches in order to retrieve the results that are desired can be complex as well. So we provide an assistance with that as part of the service. So again, with the operational phase, we guarantee 99.9% availability. And of course, there's 24/7 monitoring and support. So any time of the day or night, you can call or open a ticket with us for any questions or issues. We also proactively monitor these things. So chances are, if there's an issue, we'll know about it before you do. And of course, the monthly service reports will outline any incidents or resolutions. We also provide semi-annual health checks. So you get health checks on as far as the health of the applications to make sure that you are aware that everything is running as it should be. And of course, I mentioned the application of hotfixes and service packs. So with that, I will move it over into the Q&A section so we can open it up. Jen, I'll turn it back over to you and we can take any questions and provide answers.
All right, Austin, it looks like you have a message in the chat there from Austin. What if we are on an unsupported install of V8?
Yep, so I did cover that earlier. Basically, of course, Enterprise Vault 8 is unsupported. We can certainly migrate from it. That's not an issue. However, any issues that come up within that application obviously will not be supported by Veritas. Now, having said that, BlueSource does have a vast experience with Enterprise Vault. We've been working with it since the KVS days. So chances are we would be able to remediate any issue that would come up as part of version 8. But obviously, if something required a patch or hotfix from Veritas, that would not be possible.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, well, everybody, thank you very much, Austin. And thanks for everyone for attending today. If you'd like to have a copy of the slides or a recording of today's webinar, just reach out to me. You should all have my email. And have a great day, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.